Welcome. This is Leading with Spirit, the show that gives you an in-depth look at topics like what it takes to navigate your spiritual journey, how to heal yourself and grow your spiritual gifts, and balanced practices to expand your business and your spiritual leadership. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, shamanic teacher, healer, and author, here to guide you on your journey to becoming your most potent spiritual leader. Some of us are after status. We're interested in chasing the best things. We're interested in looking like the best. We want to be the most pure spiritual teacher. We want to make the most money. We want to be the most known. And a whole heck of a lot of us just want to help. And I'm inviting you into this exploratory journey with me on what that means, how it plays into your work, how to stay sovereign and not feel like you're abandoning others or abandoning the global community, but also navigating that place where you don't go to the other extreme, where your choice and sovereignty and desire or beliefs that when you are fulfilled, you are the most helpful goes overboard and into actual just self-serving habits. And I think I want to frame this with the bottom line being we have to remember that everybody's here for a different journey. And there isn't this like one thing. And in fact, I think what we're here to experience right now anyway is the reality of that is as we're looking to make a new world, it's less about us all being in agreement and more about respect for each other and where we're at, and finding our connection there. I had years of my younger life where I was extremely politically active and extremely opinionated as well. There's some moments in there that I'm really, really proud of for the, amount of time and energy I put into political action and speaking up. And there's some times in there where I think about like how much judgment and separation I had and how much I actually just shamed people. And you can understand it, I'm sure. When we're in pain and when we're experiencing or witnessing hard things, it's natural to want to look around you and look at those around you and, express our anger or our rage or our sadness through shame. And so the goal is not to beat yourself up or shame yourself about the fact that that might have happened, but just to remember that that's not a tool of transformation, even though it's very tempting sometimes. And I think for me, this is what I'm seeing right now in some of our rhetoric at the time that this is coming out, or at the time that I'm recording this anyway. The Palestinian crisis is, a big part of what we're seeing around the globe, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And I know a lot of people are navigating these questions of like, well, Tim, how much do I actually get involved and when is enough? And, it comes back to that question of like, what am I doing? And suddenly, people, there's some good things because suddenly people are waking up and realizing or remembering, oh yeah, like hiding out in my cozy, comfortable life and pretending that nothing else is happening actually doesn't feel good. And hiding out in my cozy, comfortable life and choosing people that I believe are the enemy and talking shit about them actually doesn't feel good either, at least not deep down, if we're being honest with ourselves, of course. But then there's this other thing where it's like, yeah, and also a lot of us are actually in our survival. It might not be survival in the sense of like we're actually fighting poverty, but we're still trying to find our stability and our safety. And there's a lot of rhetoric, of course, in spiritual and coaching communities around overflow, that, when you're really taken care of, or when you're really fulfilled and centered in yourself, you're able to give so much more. And I do believe that. And a lot of us are scared to give that to ourselves because it feels like a slippery slope. It feels like if we actually did that, then we might become kind of like the stereotypical, you know, person that's seeking status and more worried about having the biggest home and the fanciest car, than caring about other humans. I want to invite you to, one, be careful with judgment around that. Be careful that it does happen. There are people that are blindly doing this, but be careful to not assume that because it's happening, that is who they are. And be careful to not believe, or be careful to attach yourself to the belief that if you step towards that direction in any way, you will become that, because that's not true. I have a passion for lots of different political things. I considered myself a pacifist for a very long time. My belief that teaching how to communicate and how to be in community is at the heart of overcoming our habit for war. I have been passionate, of course, about women's rights and privacy for most of my life. And when it comes down to it, environmental practices and beliefs and defense is kind of at the heart of what I really care about the most. To me, it's like, well, this is what we actually came here to experience, is like the earth is the medicine of the earth and being here on earth. I mean, we came to experience the whole spectrum of human emotions and all of those things, but we kind of can do that from anywhere. We can't experience this planet from anywhere. And I also see that at the heart of where a lot of injustices begin to happen, or inequities anyway, as we are navigating resources and land rights and health. Having a clean environment is something that actually affects everybody. And probably when it comes down to, socio-political beliefs, I feel like this is the one thing that I do actually really want government to help with, because what we do upstream affects what happens downstream, of course. And I know that this can be tricky when it comes to social justice, where we want to protect minority voices and, defend people that, whether it's true or not, feel that they don't have a voice or the power to influence change. And I also feel like rules, creating government rules to enforce that, doesn't actually work. I'm more interested in affecting people directly, so that their beliefs actually line up with who they are, who they came here to be, and the kind of world they want to see, so they can live in that embodiment, instead of trying to force people to respect things that they haven't learned to embody, instead of creating rules. You can't legislate morality. So the point of this is not to pressure people into believing what I believe, or of course shaming people into doing anything different, really. I just want to, walk this journey here. And I think, let me just hold space here for a second. So when it comes to my work, I'm always navigating this. I'm navigating this space of money actually isn't bad. We spend a lot of time hating people that have it, when actually it's a really wonderful resource. and I can see how much medicine is in that journey. And a lot of us who fall into the category of, yeah, but I just want to help people, have motivation. The desire to have resources is to give back. So that's commendable. And this is where I'm at with it, is that was my primary motivation to starting my business too, both to be more resource so I could influence change in the 3D more, and because I believe that the work that I do actually influences change at the root and at the heart of, where we can have like long-term systemic transformation. And so there's moments where, when we have a global crisis, which, not to diminish at all what we're seeing in Palestine right now, but it's happening all the time. And so what we're learning right now is, well, one, tools so that we can figure out how to have the capacity to the amount of things that we're exposed to. And also tools to stay clear on who we are and what we're here to do, even when there are things happening that want to pull us out of that clarity, whether that's from guilt or shame, or whether that's from, there being a deep need to stand up and make a change. And be careful with social media. Be careful with social media. For one thing, people show up there way differently than I think what they actually believe. This is just one example, but I have a relative that shows up horribly on social media, shows up really racist, kind of mean, very ignorant. And also I know that her as a person isn't actually even like that. She's the first person to walk into a gas station and you'll see her floating a homeless person of 20 and giving them a hug, So it's like, it's so interesting. I'm not saying it's okay for people to just show up that way and promote hate, but just be careful that we're not buying into this, that we're not taking the bait that we're all laying out for each other. And similarly, I see a lot of people in the spiritual and coaching industry that have been, standing up and talking about, that we should be mad about what's happening, and that if we're not doing something, then we're part of the problem. And I have to wonder what they're actually doing besides just saying that, it's not really a judgment. Maybe they are doing something, but be careful there too, for me, with what's happening where I am right now, is my heart hurts. And also my heart hurts for like some of the poverty and racism that happens in my last home in Savannah, and what is happening on the streets, and having friends be shot and killed. That hurts my heart too. And so we just have to have discernment of how we navigate these things, that we aren't getting pulled away from our center because we feel like we should be like someone else, or we feel like we aren't doing enough. And so it's something to pay attention to, because maybe you're not doing enough. Maybe the call is actually to at least call your representatives, or at least donate some money, or maybe it's to talk more about your feelings, how this stuff is affecting you, instead of, keeping it all to yourself. But be careful that when you see people that have a great influence, that you are not being taken away from your center because they're shaming you. Especially because, again, that's what I'm wondering. I'm seeing more and more women, and I respect it to an extent, because I'm like, I tend to err towards why I would rather have people speak up than be silent. But one, social media is not really the best place for a lot of these conversations. We don't have the kind of human connection that you do when you're in person with people. and when you actually have time to work through it and it's not just comments in passing. But I also just like, it's really easy to talk a talk and be like, I'm a stand for this thing, but you're not actually doing anything except making a post. So just be careful how much you carry shame or guilt around be careful that people aren't shooting you into something. That's not a tool of transformation either. For me, at least at this moment, I have a lot of clarity about why I'm here. I have a lot of clarity about why I'm here, and I have a lot of awareness that a lot of the things that I'm here to do, I won't see in my lifetime. I won't see them complete or done. And so that can be challenging to keep on my path when it feels like what I want to see happening isn't happening yet. And this is part of the visionary path too. If you're a visionary, if you're a seer, you see things way before other people do. And that can be frustrating because it can feel like either you can get into a place where you try to like force it, or you try to self-growth yourself into manifesting it. And it's not actually about how you need to be better or you need to fix yourself to see the visions that you have. And it's more about the fact that you just see them earlier. And your job is really to plant the seeds and wait for them to grow. And that's hard. It's hard when we're looking at intense and dramatic things that are happening. And again, I'm saying discernment. I'm not saying ignore reality or ignore what's happening around you and just stay in a shameless pursuit of, of self-actualization, which is actually just like creating a little bubble around yourself and pretending like nothing else is happening in the world. I'm not saying that. So I'm not going to keep correcting myself on the rest of this talk that I'm giving right now, or this transmission, but just know that that is not what I'm suggesting. But again, for me, it's like, well, when I'm tempted to leave my center, when I'm tempted to jump out of my knowing of who I am and what I'm here to do, it takes everything more time to come together. And that for me, I know that means I end up basically like living someone else's path for a short time. And it kind of slows everything else down. And it's challenging because people will try to shame you into being who they think you should be. And people will try to guilt you into doing what they think you should do. And there are going to be times where you get it wrong and you don't act when you should have. For me, I know that this environmental work is at the heart of what I care about the most and what I'm here to do. I've had a long road, and I'm still on it, on letting the part of myself go that tries to teach through shame. I'm realizing that for a lot of the transformation that I want to see, I actually need to let go of some of the extreme beliefs that I have about it. That little things like the way I freak out when there's food waste. Oh my God, I hate it. I hate wasting food. And no, it's not like a great moral quality to waste food and not care. But it's also like if I throw away 2 bunches of kale, it's like, okay. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. And also that's like, honestly, like less waste, especially because I compost, than, buying something that's like wrapped in plastic that we do every single day. So I struggle with like watching that. And I've realized that the way that I get overwhelmed by the like small things and the way I want to control how much everybody is aware of it is part of me being distracted from my true purpose. And it's part of like trying to shame into transformation. And it is also part of like making humans the enemy. And I don't quite know what the answer is, but I can see the way that I have been doing things is not working. And it also takes me out of my center and away from my ability to stay aligned towards my higher purpose when I get distracted by these small things. So a big part of Earth Embodiment, this program that I'm launching, it came to me years ago when I started shaman school. I've talked about it a little bit. I'll talk about it a little bit more directly now. When I was creating and bringing forth shaman school, Earth Embodiment came to me as a word, as a phrase. I remember when the phrase came in, I was like, oh, this is going to be my life's work. This is going to be my next program. And it'll probably be 10 years from now. I didn't expect that a few years later, here I am bringing it forward. It came to me. I woke up in the middle of the night, actually, when I was on a trip down in Savannah, Georgia, and the whole thing came through. I channeled it all, and it was like, yeah, it's now. The time is now. And so I spent the better part of the last year letting it unfold and figuring out how to bring it forward and how to tend it, how to maintain the original integrity of the vision, how to not get taken off my center by what other people say they want or what I think other people will pay for, learning how to communicate the vision that I have. And it's like there are moments where I'm like, oh, maybe I should be doing more. Not just with the global crisis that we're seeing, but just in general. Like I always have these thoughts, maybe I should be doing more. And I have to remember that like this program for me is much deeper than volunteering for a couple hours. It is, for me, what I see is helping people embody the codes of the earth, why we came here, to experience the medicine of this planet, to experience the energy of this planet, to experience the wisdom of this planet, of this being that we are on and part of, at least right now. Maybe not forever, but at least for right now. And it has a natural balance in it. A lot of us are seeking that. A lot of us are like seeking balance. We're always too much or not enough. We're always overworking or being lazy. We're always on this pendulum swing. If you want balance, you can learn Earth Embodiment. You can learn the codes of the earth and how to be part of our ecosystem, how to be in community, and how to do it without going backwards. I think we tend to idolize indigenous communities, and obviously they have been horribly treated and hold a lot of wisdom that we have, at least colonialism has ignored. And also, let's not pretend that any ancient civilization was perfect and that there wasn't also war, right? And so there's a place where I think we need to be careful not to demonize this whole age of separation and the masculine, where we have learned how to take things apart and learn to systemize things and learn to find structure and innovation in a different way. It has cost us in some ways, but it's not all bad. And we have to be careful with idolizing the feminine. It hurts. I know it hurts a lot of us that this way of being that we remember gets trampled on so much and isn't seen as valuable. And I know a lot of people are saying we're in a return to the feminine. And in my opinion, that's not what this is. That's not what we're doing here. In my opinion, we're in a return to partnership. That means partnership with the masculine and feminine. That means partnership with each other. That means partnership with the land. That means partnership with ourselves and our purpose and our path. And what I see with Earth Embodiment is the more, even though it will go slow, the more that I help people find these codes and embody this very nature, embody nature. This is that ripple out effect. And I know when moments seem intense and dramatic and it feels like there's a crisis, that it feels like that takes too long, but it's also medicine. And I know that even though I want to see it right now, that for me, in this moment, sticking to this original vision is my best way to influence long-lasting change that sticks. It's my best way to influence ushering in this world we keep imagining together. And there are so many people doing this, and there are so many parts to it. And so, again, this isn't a cry that other people should be like me or should be doing it the way I'm doing it. It's just an exploration of like, we have to be careful what we attach to and how we think things should be. It's, if anything, I'm suggesting or reminding you that shame isn't a tool of transformation. And I see this a lot, of course, in politics, and I get it again because it just tears at the heart, doesn't it? I see this in spiritual leadership as well. It's like the sort of the opposite of this like bypass. I've seen many spiritual teachers get into a place where they get called out, or where it's time for some accountability or at least some questioning, and I've seen it not even just with spiritual teachers, but just like in general with public. I'm pretty forward facing with my business. I run ads, and I, of course, get people that comment on my ads that don't know me at all or anything about my business. It always cracks me up, actually, because I feel like somebody coming and making like a judgmental, rude, or mean comment on my advertisement is sort of like somebody walking by a business and then just like yelling at the shop, but that's another subject. People will say shit all the time. And then if I do engage with them, and I'm pretty careful about whether I do or not and how, but if I do engage with them, I've had people be like, oh, well, I'm just a mirror to you. And it's like, and spiritual teachers do this all the time. It's such bullshit. Like, it's such bullshit. Like, yes, you can teach from that place. You can teach from like, this idea that you're embodying somebody else's shadow to show it to them. But I think that's bullshit. Or at least for me, I'm not interested in teaching in that way. And the same thing with like our political crises. Like when people or groups of people have shown up, when there's been trauma, when they've shown up on the global scale as a demonstration of like what's really happening and the horrible things that don't get published or don't get media attention, that's a mixed bag for me too, because it's like I see where there's some medicine that they've become some medicine that they have been a wake-up call for us or a demonstration for us. And I'm also really not interested in aligning with like martyring that or idolizing that, because that's not the way I want us to learn either. So I don't have some clear thing for you. If I'm going to wrap this up and give you a few bullet points, shame is not a tool for transformation. Use discernment before you buy into what you think other people are and what you should be doing. And do your best to stay true to what you know is right for you, even when it's hard, even when everything is suggesting for you to be different. Yeah. And I'll wrap up bringing back to earth embodiment. So it is my life's work. I'm really excited to be offering it. We start in February, mid-February. At the time of this recording, there is still time to join, and There aren't many seats left, but there might be a couple. And this is an invitation for you to step into a different experience for yourself, to come and share sacred space, to come and innovate. You'll have access to my earth embodiment teachings. You'll get them, they will be yours, and you can either reteach them directly, or you can weave them into your own programs or your nonprofit or your political endeavors, so that they'll elevate what you're doing. And those codes will be transferred to the people that you teach. We'll be here to develop you as individuals so you can step into the level of leadership required for the vision that you have. We'll be working with 4 different types of plant medicine over a year and 4 different ceremonies. And each ceremony will also have essentially a VIP day where you'll sit down with us and we'll help you with some of the practical 3D stuff and strategy to get you started on this path, to get you into action. It is a mystic journey. We're not doing this from the 3D. We're not doing this from the logic and the research. We're doing this from you are a mystic, you are a seer and a visionary, and we're going to tap into that and bring it into the world. And maybe you'll see change. Maybe you'll see the deep vision that you have for the way the world is. I find visions come in layers. Like there's like the immediate one and like the 3D reality of it. There's the way the vision affects me as an individual. And then there's the long-term vision of the change or the influence that it will have. And so we'll be playing with all 3 of those. So if you're interested in earth embodiment, send me a DM. Or I do have some links around, but they're not as public. So you might have to just reach out directly. Or depending on where you're listening to this, I'll probably post the link in the show notes, I guess. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening today. Be well, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome to today's Member Query episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. Question that is from our Leading with Spirit Facebook group is, how do I know the difference between intuition and thinking? This is a question that I get asked a lot. And I always find that the simplest way to check is by noticing what comes in first. Almost always, the first thing that comes in is going to be the intuition. And what comes right behind it is our thinking mind, either analyzing it, trying to talk us out of it, or trying to apply it and see what would happen if it were true. So the simplest thing is to pay attention to that subtlety, that very first thing that came in first. That is the information that is coming from the intuitive realm. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their highest purpose. Until next time, journey on.